Hello and welcome back to Bitesize Boxing, and today I'd like to talk about Naoya Inoue, who in my opinion is one of those fighters that is massively flying under the radar in terms of not just his popularity in the Anglosphere and in the West at large, but really in terms of how he's rated. Now, I understand within hardcore circles like these, he's no worse than top 3 pound for pound. Crawford, Inoue, Usyk, whichever order you want it really. But for me, I think Inoue is flying under the radar for reasons that he can't help. Of course, he is based out in Japan mainly, but he's doing big crowds in Japan. He's a household name in Japan. But I think the problem with Inoue is because of the weight that he fights at, and he's been fighting at these lower weights, a lot of his opponents have been more obscure, especially to a Western audience, and that sort of prohibits him from having that global kind of reach that someone like him deserves to have. So I go back to, of course, this MJ Akhmadaliev fight that he had at the weekend, and it was a phenomenal performance. It was a great performance. Now, I'm going to be honest, in terms of entertainment, it wasn't the most scintillating Inoue performance. But the thing that impressed me about it was one of those fights that, in the nicest possible way, within about 30 seconds to a minute, I'd seen enough. I knew he was going to win, probably on points, because we know MJ's tough. But again, this is a guy in MJ Akhmadaliev who was an IBF champion in his own right. Yes, he'd recently lost to Marlon Tapales, but he had been a former world champion, and he was one of the highest rated contenders at Super Bantam, if not the highest rated contender. And Inoue dealt with him with ease, and there were very clear levels between them. As I say, it was one of those that you're watching the fight, and within, the first couple of minutes, it was just apparent that there was a massive gulf in class between these two, and Inoue didn't really have to show much more to his game because he could just outbox MJ. And it was quite interesting because, of course, Inoue's become quite known as this sort of destructive puncher, but there is a lot of boxing nous to Inoue, and you saw that in that fight that he's just had against MJ. He really, really put it all together, and he looked, in my opinion, quite impressive in the way that he nullified and dealt with MJ. So I think the problem that we've had is, of course, you had the Crawford-Canelo fight, which is, at least commercially, the biggest fight of the year that took place last weekend. And thus, it kind of means that Inoue gets overshadowed, particularly when you consider that Inoue fought on Facebook, of all places. Facebook. So Inoue was fighting on Facebook in the US and in the UK. So two of the biggest boxing markets, if not the two biggest markets in the world, and Inoue is fighting, again, in obscurity on Facebook Live, which the only other cards I've ever seen on Facebook Live my whole life were some obscure, when I was a proper boxing degenerate, and I would seek out boxing every night of the week, and I'd always try and find a stream, a bit like that, I've forgotten his name, Boxio something, a guy on Twitter who does the exact same thing now, he's brilliant. And he'll be watching, some Ghanaian stream or some boxing in a club in Equatorial Guinea or something on a Wednesday night. They are the only other types of cards I've ever seen on Facebook Live, and yet you have a packed out arena with Inoue headlining in, what was it? It was an undisputed, wasn't it? It was an undisputed fight, and it's on Facebook Live. So this does not help. Now, a lot of people have kind of hypothesized of what he can do. And I think, of course, the only way he will ever get that credit in the Anglosphere, rightfully or wrongfully, is by stepping up in weight, and then he will end up facing some of the more notable and well-known American names. But for me, I don't think he needs to do that to solidify his legacy any further. He's already as I say, a top 3 pound for pounder. The way he's ran through the divisions has been incredibly impressive. And for me, Inoue has been brilliant entertainment, because this is a guy that doesn't necessarily always have it his own way. He gets knocked down. Against Luis Nery, he got knocked down. Against Donaire in the first fight, he got knocked down. I mean, that first Donaire fight was incredible. But then in that rematch, of course, Donaire was very much past his best by that point. But then, he dealt with him easily in the second fight. But again, that first fight was brilliant. He got his orbital bone fractured, but he fought through it. And that's what I love about Inoue fights, is that oftentimes there is jeopardy involved. But he normally gets the job done in spectacular fashion. So as a boxing fan, what isn't there to like? I just think it is incredibly unfortunate that the Anglosphere and the West at large has this kind of arrogance to it. That's the only other word I can look for to use. It's an arrogant nature whereby if you don't fight in America or the UK or you're not a UK-based fighter, or you're not American, you're no good, or you're not worth watching. Inoue is a fantastic fighter, and again, for someone like me in the UK, he's always on at a reasonable time. You know, it's far easier for me to watch an Inoue fight than it is for me to watch any American fighter. I mean, you go back to the Bud Crawford fight. The Bud Crawford fight, those guys weren't in the ring till 6 a.m. I had to stay up, and the undercard started at about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. I ended up having to stay up for 7 hours throughout the whole night to watch that fight. Whereas with Inoue, it's on at midday. It's easy for someone like me to catch. So there's no excuse from our side of things to not pay more attention to Asian boxing. I do think it's unfortunate. It really is, because I think he doesn't get the eyes that he deserves. And of course, if we do get that Nakatani fight, I mean, that's mouth-watering. I can't wait for that. Hopefully we do get that Nakatani fight. They do cross over. We do find them in the same division at the same time. And it does end up because it just feels like that might be a fight that's so big, even though it's in Asia, that it has that kind of potential to cross over. But failing that, unfortunately, I think the only thing that Inoue can do to get that recognition is to step up well beyond his natural weight class to fight some of these Americans. Of course, there's been the likes of Tank Davis mentioned and things like that, but I think Tank Davis is a lost cause anyway. I mean, he's fighting one of the Paul brothers, for Christ's sake, so, you know, I don't think he takes his career seriously. And to be honest with you, I don't see, even if he, in a hypothetical matchup where Inoue did fight someone like Tank, I don't really see what it proves, because, I mean, Tank has fought as high as 140. Inoue started at what? Actually, let's see, what weight did Inoue start at? 108. 108. So, what would you even gain from beating Naoya Inoue, who started at 108, fighting, you know, a 140 pounder? I mean, I think that it's just absurd. It's stupid. But look, the resume from Inoue has been class. The way he's dealing with his opposition has been class. I think he's flying under the radar. He's so underrated. And again, I just wanted to make this video because I could come and talk about the Crawford fight, which everyone's talking about. I could talk about some of the other big fights that we saw and the controversy, like we saw with Franklin. But I wouldn't be doing Inoue justice, because I think he deserves a video dedicated to him, because what he's done is just incredible, and long may it continue. In his early 30s now, which at those lighter weights, the wheels can and often do fall off at any given moment, but hopefully he's still got a good couple of years left in him, because yeah, I'm loving the Inoue train, and it's been a pleasure to watch for the last decade or so. But what do you guys think? You let me know. As always, I'd be very interested to know. Take it easy. Cheers.